Our objectives today are to identify the signs of elder abuse, understand the reporting process when abuse is suspected, and learn the steps you can take to prevent elder abuse from happening. I would like to remind everyone that we are mandated reporters per state and federal laws. We are required to report any suspected abuse. It is not our job to substantiate the abuse, just to report suspected abuse. Providers are mandated reporters. It could be anything from obvious signs to a feeling that something is just not right. So stay alert and improve lives. Some statistics on elder abuse. 1 in 10 Americans age 60 plus have experienced some sort of abuse. For every one elder abuse case known to program and agencies, 23.5 are unknown, and only 1 in 14 cases of elder abuse ever comes to the attention of authorities. Elder abuse reduces older people's participation in life and in the communities. And it was estimated that it cost about $2.9 billion in 2009. And older adults who experience abuse or neglect are twice as likely to be hospitalized than other older people. Without accessible quality health and public services, our population becomes more at risk for abuse as we age. So let's go over some signs of the 3 major categories of elder abuse. We have emotion and behavioral, we have physical, and we have financial abuse. Some signs of emotional and behavioral abuse is everyone or someone that usually gets 6 hours of sleep is now only sleeping about 2 hours a night and having nightmares. Also a sign is a person who is usually very calm and confident becomes easily startled and agitated easily over seemingly trivial things. Someone who is usually outgoing is now isolating themselves, no longer doing the things that they enjoy, or may not be answering phone calls. Someone who is typically happy is now sad and maybe even being labeled as grumpy. A person who is talkative now has a caregiver or partner that is talking or answering questions for them in person or on the phone. APS sees a lot of this when they go to investigate allegations of abuse in the vulnerable adult home. Anytime you hear of name calling and threats, for instance, you hear residents say, "Oh, I can't do that, my son will get mad," or "my friend calls me names," or maybe "my daughter says I'm worthless," those are all signs of emotional and behavioral abuse. Some signs of physical abuse can include broken bones, bruises, welts, cuts, sores, burn marks, and frequent trips to the ER. Torn, stained, or bloody other clothing is a good sign that they are being sexually abused, along with sexually transmitted diseases without a clear explanation, especially in someone who is not sexually active. A person who is being physically abused may no longer have the will to clean or fix things up or take care of themselves, and may live in poor living conditions and just dirty surroundings. They may be depressed and not eat or drink, or maybe be denied food and water from their caregiver. They may be missing daily living aids such as glasses, walker, or medication. The caregiver may not be allowing them to have these things, or may be using these things as leverage to control them. You may see signs of unnecessary use of restraints like bruises around the wrists or ankles, or the person may be saying, "My caregiver, wife, son, etc. ties me to the bed at night so that I can't get up." Again, you'll see sleep disturbances, not sleeping or having nightmares. You may see untreated sores, ulcers. That means that they're physically being neglected, not being repositioned and left in one position for several hours. Some signs of financial abuse may include fake signatures or financial documents. If you see this, or the person says to you, "I have this paperwork, but it's not my signature, I don't know what this is," that may be a sign that they're being financially exploited. Unusual or quick changes in a will or other financial documents. For instance, all of a sudden, Mr. Jones signs his house over to a new caregiver when for years he's talked about leaving the house to his daughter. Unusual changes in a banking account or money management. All of a sudden, an account is closed and then a new one's opened with Mr. Jones on it, but also someone that he just recently met or a new caregiver. Large amounts of money being taken out of the bank and unpaid bills. Some bank tellers are trained and will look out for these things and report to APS, especially in your smaller communities where they really get to know their customers. They'll notice if something's off. Also, right now, scams are really bad. You have the grandparent scam where someone calls and says, "Grandma, this is so-and-so. I'm in Mexico and I can't get home. I need you to send me $2,000. Those are really popular. They tug on the grandparents' hearts. So there's also one, if you don't pay your taxes that you owe, you're going to be arrested right now. We're going to send out an officer for you. There's also one that's associated that they call and they say, hey, you have a crime associated with your Social Security number. Please call and verify your Social Security number. So you have some signs of emotional and behavioral, physical, and financial abuse. Imprint those in your mind and remember them. So anything you see out of the norm, even if it's not included in those signs that we just went over, may be a sign of a crime, and as a mandated reporter, it is our duty to report it. So a little review here. Remember the signs of emotional abuse, financial abuse, and physical abuse. Have them etched in your memory. Take action. If you see something, say something. Every point of contact is a chance to look for signs. Everyone you talk to, it's a chance to make a difference. Small suspicions are enough to call and maybe change a person's life for the better. It's not our job to substantiate the abuse, it's our job to report suspected abuse. So, how should we report it? Any person who knows or has reasonable cause to believe that a vulnerable adult is being or has been abused, neglected, exploited, abandoned, intimidated, or is committing self-neglect shall report the information immediately to the Department of Family Services, to law enforcement agencies such as the police, sheriff, highway patrol. You could call the Medicare Fraud Control Unit or the Department of Criminal Investigation. Anyone who in good faith makes a report is immune from the civil liabilities for making the report. Okay, the reporting process. It's easier than it looks here on paper. So the reporter is going to contact the local Department of Family Services office of the county where the concern has taken place. The local law enforcement can also be contacted to make a report. Most of the time, I believe the Department of Family Services contacts law enforcement, but that could be something that you could ask them when you're on the phone with them, if they're going to do that or if they need you to. Reporters need to have as much identifying information regarding the vulnerable adult as possible, such as the name, phone number, address, as well as the nature of the concern. Give them as much detail as you can. DFS will then screen the report to see if it meets the statute and policy definitions of abuse, neglect, self-neglect of a vulnerable adult. If it does, then a case is open, depending on the above screening process, and the vulnerable adult will be contacted within 3 days of the report being made, unless an immediate response is needed, such as the vulnerable adult is in immediate danger. As a reporter, you have the right to remain anonymous if you'd like, and upon making that report, you are exempt from civil or criminal liabilities in making that report on a vulnerable adult unless it is a false report. DFS won't be able to call you back to let you know what has occurred. If it was a case, if it wasn't, they can't do anything. They can't release any information based on the report due to the confidentiality restrictions per Wyoming state statutes. In all cases, reports or referrals, the vulnerable adult has the right to choose how they want to live, and DFS does not have the authority to force that adult in question to make a different decision. If the APS goes out there and the vulnerable adult says they're fine, I gave my grandson that money, he takes care of me, I don't see anything wrong with the way I live, if they're perfectly happy with the way that they are, unless they've been deemed incompetent by 2 doctors or a court, then they have the right to refuse the Department of Family Services help, and APS really can't do much about it. If you feel nothing is being done, call again. You may get a different APS worker, or that same APS worker may see a different scenario, may be able to get that vulnerable adult alone without that abusing caregiver, and things might change. So just keep calling. It's the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So put to memory those signs of elder abuse that we went over. Pay attention and be on the lookout. If you suspect abuse, what can a provider do? You can report elder abuse by calling the Adult Protective Service hotline at 1-800-457-3659. You could call your local Department of Family Service office, or you can be rerouted by calling 307-777-7921. You can also find a listing of the Department of Family Services by county at dfs.wyo.gov. And you can click on that website right there in the yellow box. You can call your local law enforcement agency non-emergency line, or if the adult is in immediate danger, then you can call your emergency 911.